Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate the opportunity to educate you. My topic is reckless lending a decade later. Is the economy ready for a second crash? Who here wants to buy a house? Raise your hand. Okay, who here owns a home? Raise your hand. Well, when you bought your home, did you buy it less than a year ago? Anybody? Less than 5 years? 5 to 10? Over 10. Okay, when you bought that house, how much did you put down on that house? Did you put down 20% to get the loan? Anybody? How about 10%? 5%? How many put 0 down to get their house? Who of you here thinks economic collapse will not happen again? Raise your hand. If you think so, why do you think you're safe? Housing collapses happened before and they will happen again. Of the 11 million American households that were foreclosed on and lost their home in 2008, who of you knew had a friend that lost their home? Who had a family member that lost their home? Who lost their home themselves? Me too. It happened to me. So my expertise, why should you listen to me? My name is Donald J. Gossman, SRA. I'm a real estate appraiser from Kansas City. I have been a watchdog for the mortgage and appraisal industry since 2006. I received a phone call from a lender I'd never heard of before in 2006, wanting me to overvalue a house by $800,000. It was listed for $700,000. They were selling it for $1.5 and get a $1.5 million loan. And I told them no, but I called the FBI agent that I had met before, and so they could put it on their watch list. In 2006, the FBI did not have a watch list because they thought mortgage fraud was a victimless crime. Agent Jensen called me back the next day and says, "Who's the buyers?" And she told me, she goes, "They're straw buyers. They're part of an organized criminal fraud ring that's operating in Kansas City, and we'd be interested in their information." Then she asked me, "Who's the sellers?" And I told the name. She goes, "Let me grab another FBI agent. We'll be there in 20 minutes. Needless to say, that's not the answer I was looking for. So 20 minutes later, 2 black FBI cars and agents and badges and guns knocking on my door, just like at the movies. I showed them the information I had. They said, "Do you know who the sellers are?" I said, "I'm not familiar with the names." And they said, "The seller's dad was a made member of the mob. He was executed and stuffed in the trunk of a car, but we don't think his son's a member of the mob." And I'm thinking, phew, that's good. And he says, "But you really need to worry about his wife." And I'm like, "Well, who's his wife?" And he says, "Well, I'll tell you her political name." And they did. And she was running for mayor of Kansas City. So the FBI agents say, "Would you mind helping us?" And what do you tell 2 FBI agents that are sitting in your office? And I said, "Yes, I will." And they're like, "Call the lender back and tell them you commit the fraudulent appraisal." And I said, "As long as you give me something in writing that protects me, I'll do that." Then they asked me the $1 million question. Would you mind recording that conversation? So the next 21 days, I worked undercover for the FBI, testified in front of the federal grand jury. 4 days later, I was diagnosed with lymphoma. Went through 3 rounds of chemo, 18 rounds of radiation. The defense lawyers found out I was sick. They delayed the trial for 6 months, hoping I would die, but I didn't. And I was the government's lead witness at the federal case where 9 of the 11 people were pled or found guilty. So after this, I wrote an article called My New Client, the FBI, about my involvement in the case to warn other appraisers what was going on. It was republished, was sent out to 65,000 people in the industry, and I received an email from the director of mortgage fraud from Fannie Mae, thanking me for what I did and asking me if I would, they're using my article as a training tool. And I sent her over a PowerPoint, and she calls me back, and she goes, "Don, I would really like for you to present again." I'm like, fly to Dallas, talk to a bunch of appraisers. And she goes, no, I want you to do a breakout session with me at the Mortgage Bankers Association National Fraud Convention with Freddie, Fannie, the OTC, Treasury, Justice Department, and 200 of the largest banks in the country. And I told Amy, not no, but heck no. That's not what I do. And Amy says, if you don't tell your story, it's going to happen again. So in 2009, I flew out, told all the banks, they made all these bad loans, had all these bad appraisals. The bankers didn't want to hear what I had to say. But in the audience, there were 10 FBI agents, including the director of the National Mortgage Fraud Task Force. 5 weeks later, I'm in front of 70 FBI agents, 40 assistant U.S. attorneys, 10 investigators from HUD, and the director of the National Mortgage Fraud Task Force. They said, you helped point out part of the problem before, will you help be part of the solution? And what do you tell the Justice Department when they call you up? Yes, sir. And so when I got done, the director called me the next week and he said, we sent out instructor evaluation forms and you blew off the wall. We want you to come back next year and teach us again. And I said, I have some additional information the FBI might find helpful. So next year I went back and I taught 90 FBI agents how to commit appraisal fraud. So if they know how to commit appraisal fraud, then they'll know how to stop it. And in 2011, I was an instructor at the NAC, which is the Office of Legal Education for the United States Attorneys. And I was at the meeting where they were trying to decide if they were going to charge the banks civilly or criminally for the damage they caused our country. And I gave my presentation, they asked me questions, I gave them answers, I told them where to go find the information, and they ended up suing 21 individuals and 17 banks for $196 billion. 2 years ago, I wrote a book called My Client, the FBI, and I wrote this to warn consumers. The last time I've been working with government agencies, this time I want to warn the consumer. And the reason I wrote it is because I don't want another mortgage meltdown to happen again. Because we're repeating the collapse. There's declining home sales that are going on right now. And the chief economist from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, who I've presented with before, has overlaid declining home sales over the last 12 and 36 month period of time and how they are compared to the last 3 recessions. And he looks at, we're going to go into a recession early 2020, and the values of the properties are going to decline again like they did before. Not as bad as the Great Recession, but as bad as the recessions in 1991 and 2001. Well, how do you define a housing meltdown? Well, you have decreasing home values. Homes don't always go up. They have for the last 10 years, but homes go in cycles. So we're going to have declining home values. And then that happens, you're going to have people that are upside down in their mortgages, that they owe more on their houses than what they're worth. So then they're going to try to do a short sale to try to get rid of it. And if they do sell it for less, then the bank's going to send them a deficiency judgment that's taxable for the money they lose. If not, then we're looking at a foreclosure crisis that's going to happen again. Well, how will the collapse affect you? Does anybody here know who the largest lender in the country is at the present time? Quicken Home Loans makes over 50% of the loans in the United States at the present time. Has anybody heard of Zillow? Everybody checks their Zillow value. 1 week it's up, 1 week it's down. You know, you never know what it is. But Zillow is making loans and buying properties and selling them. So we're having a rise of non-bank, non-lending institutions that are not covered by the banking laws, who are promoting over 60% of the loans that are being made in the country, that are selling their loans to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Well, the government policy usually changes things. In 1999, the government decided that everyone should own a home loan. And we saw how that all turned out. Well, there's two parts of the government now that want to get back involved, and that's Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. They have come up with a system that by the end of 2020, 70% of all home loans would be done without appraisals, because they have been gathering data for the last 7 years and are going to use artificial intelligence to come up with the value of the property. Instead of an appraiser going to a home, they're going to send a 360-degree camera to the borrower or to the realtor, walk through the home, do the inspection, upload it to Freddie or Fannie, then they will decide if they need an appraisal, an evaluation, or just a waiver, not get anything at all. But the problem is with Freddie and Fannie's information is how good is the data that they've been putting in. They've been gathering data on values going up. They have not collected data on values going down. How good is the artificial intelligence they're going to use? Because they're going to be ordering these evaluations and waivers, they're not going to get the information they had before. So omissions of certain pieces of information caused our last mortgage meltdown. It was appraisers like me that didn't do our job, and we omitted information. Well, who is Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae? Well, Fannie Mae was taken over in 2008 by the government. They're still in control of the government. They make loans to low and moderate income borrowers. They don't make loans, but they guarantee loans, but they package them together and sell them together as a mortgage-backed securities. Freddie Mac is also a government-sponsored agency that was taken over in 2008, and they package together loans from banks and sells those as mortgage-backed securities. It wasn't for Freddie Mac, you couldn't make a 30-year loan because the banks would have to keep all their mortgages on their loan for 30 years. Well, Freddie and Fannie think that values are going to continue to increase like they did before the collapse. They can tell you what it's worth today, what they think it's worth in 5 years, and what they think it's worth in 10 years. Well, the problem with that, how about if they're wrong? Because we're still on the hook. Everyone in this room today is still on the hook for Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae because we're still in control of them. So they are loosening their lending standards, they are loosening their valuation standards, and everyone here is liable to do it. How many people here want to bail out Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae again from loosening standards or, bad valuation? Yeah, I didn't think so. But that's the direction that we're going to go again. Well, the warning signs before the last meltdown is starting to show up again. People are paying 5 to 10% more than the list price of the house so they can get it, especially for affordable homes because there's such a lack of stock. Well, these people are putting down 3 to 5% on a loan that they offer 10% more than what it was worth. So they're going into loan upside down with negative equity to start. As soon as the market starts to slow down, the lenders will manipulate the numbers, whatever they need to make the deal done, and then sell it. Well, Zillow and Quicken Loans sell 60% of their loans to Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. They are the ones that are pushing loosening regulations. They are the ones that are pushing loosening the guidelines. Less regulation does not help you. Less regulation hurts you. And because if Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae go belly up again, it's going to affect every American in the country, even if you do not own a home, because it will slow the economy, increase the national debt, and as well as affect housing. So it is going to affect everybody, and so we're going to do it. So don't be powerless. You think there's nothing that you can do to go out and make change, but it's not too late. These policies are still being put into place. So you can go out and make a change, make a difference still. Well, what can you do? You can contact your congressmen, contact your senators, go out, write emails, letters, protest, or anything else. But you're probably telling yourself, I'm one person. How can I make a difference? I'm just one person. Well, in 2006, I was one person. I was one real estate appraiser working out of my basement, seeing what was going on and complaining, why doesn't somebody do something about what is going on? Then I got that phone call and I made a phone call and then ended up teaching the U.S. attorneys. And on the line, I changed 2 state laws, a federal law, in the way houses are valued across the country. So when people tell you that one person cannot make a difference, tell them they're wrong. One person can make a difference, and that one person is you. Now you all go out and make a difference. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.